Young Abdullah Mason takes center stage, starts off the week rough, right? Starts off the week with the champ, sunning him a little bit. He Abdullah has the appetite for smoke, and Keyshawn pushed the big plate his way, and he said, "What's in this, waiter?" Before I dig in, and then so, but ultimately, the weekend's very strong for him. He gets to take advantage of Keyshawn Davis's misstep. He becomes the main event in Norfolk, and he dominates Jeremiah Nakathila. Raymond Murataya, who just won his IBF title, he wound up, doing this a little bit more in spectacular fashion. He knocks Nakathila out in 3 rounds, but the spectacular stuff was just about to happen. Abdullah had just got done finishing his vegetables and was about to eat his steak and potatoes. He and this fight was very good for Abdullah. He took strides in his defense in this fight. Abdullah was dropped 2 times against a fighter Vasquez a couple fights ago, I believe was his name, and that so people loved the way he responded to getting dropped, getting up, getting a knockout. But people wanted to see him tighten up the defense. Defense was extremely tight in this fight, and it was tight out of a couple of different looks. He used the high guard, and it was a tight high guard. He shoulder rolled, but actually rolled. Some fighters shoulder roll and don't really roll. He rolled underneath shots. He rolled shots with the shoulder. He caught shots and parried with the glove. He did a lot of nice defensive maneuvers. And when Nakatia was being a long, rangy guy and keeping him honest with his right hand and his positioning with the right hand, Abdullah didn't get overzealous. He ate his vegetables. Touch him with the jab first. Find him with the jab first. Touch that body. And that's exactly the sequence he did. He found him with the jab, didn't get hit coming in, was responsible about cutting distance against a crafty veteran who does have power in his right hand, touched the body, and then just when he was starting to touch him with hard left hands, the corner said they had enough. So not an A-plus spectacular performance, but a methodical, very composed, mature, patient, sharp performance by Abdullah Mason. I give him the A minus, right? The one thing I want to see him work on is the feints, and this will lead me to a point in a second. He didn't feint a lot, and Nakatia, even without him feinting, was reacting to things. As the fight went on, he was getting twitchier and twitchier, and Abdullah wasn't even feigning him. And I know from studying from the OGs, from the Floyd Mayweathers, the Sean Porters, the Tim Bradleys, I know when a guy is fighting off the back foot, one thing they talk about, you freeze him with the feints and you freeze him with the lead hand, and that's how you get him to freeze and eventually start getting off the highlight reel stuff that Abdullah wants to get off. And that brings me to a point. One thing that's going to be an uphill climb for Abdullah Mason, who I'm excited to hear what Raheem says about everything, but I'm really excited to hear what he says about Abdullah because I know you took a good look at him in this one. He's learning on the job, and so is everyone around him. His entire corner are his brothers and his father, and they are collectively novices at the championship level. He is not like Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Davis, Keyshawn Davis. These are guys who have been getting game from Floyd Mayweather, Andre Ward, Roy Jones. Devin used to train with Mike McCallum, God rest his soul. Point being, all those guys I mentioned have gotten tons of game from decades and centuries of experience at the championship level. With Abdullah, it's just him and his pops and his brothers. They're learning this as they go along. But what's going to be maybe beneficial to him in the long run is when he acquires that knowledge, because that's what needs the most fine tuning in Abdullah's game. He has electricity in his fists. The punches themselves are extremely fast, compact, sharp, and have power in both hands. But if he were to get the Keyshawn Davis fight, if Davis could have made weight and he did wind up fighting him next, the reason why I'd favor Keyshawn isn't because of the punches. I think Abdullah already has more electricity in his hands than Keyshawn does, and Keyshawn has it too, when everything's going right. But Keyshawn, because of all that experience he's been given and game he's been given, he understands feinting and positioning and timing and distance control, probably at a level young Abdullah doesn't quite understand yet. But because he's going to have to learn all this the hard way for himself, and it's not going to be experience passed down to him, I think once he acquires it, he can maybe grasp it and understand it on an even deeper level than those young guys have because he's had to acquire it for himself. It hasn't been passed down to him. I don't know. That might be getting a little deep about it, but once that kid really becomes a true grown man and all that seasoning is put in addition to the speed and the power, oh man, he could be something special. I want to see if you think the same. And my last point about him is all these young guys from this era in America are American fighters. Haney, Lopez, Stevenson, and Tank, and all them. Keyshawn, they've all, to varying degrees, been decorated, and they're all very talented. And like I said, decorated. They've accomplished things, but they've been leaving us wanting something a little bit more in comparison to previous crops, like the real Four Kings and all them. I wonder if this kid can be an antithesis to them in some ways. And he's grown up telling me, I grew up watching the guys from the black and white days. My favorite fighter ever is Sugar Ray Robinson. All these other kids, their favorite young men, their favorite fighter is Floyd Mayweather, and that's the foundation of the guys they look up to, their lineage. This kid's watching Sugar Ray Robinson. Let's see if maybe he's a little bit different in that sense going forward. What do you think of him, Raheem?
You could be a talent scout, Sean.
Yeah,
If you were a journalist and somebody would pay you to go find the next guy, and I think you'd be successful in that pursuit. You've been bugging me about this Abdullah Mason for much longer than the last week.
just like I
And
bugged you about Devin Haney, Tiafimo, David Benavidez, right? I mean, I don't get always get them right, but yeah. So
this is what I'm saying. And sometimes it takes me a little while to get around to it. But because we're doing the show, we actually got to it faster than I think I otherwise would. The fact that I have to look at this fight now that it was elevated to a main event. And, to be fair, I only have so much attention I can give, and I tend to be at the elite top levels for those kind of shows. So, what else am I gonna do but have to make a guy hit a certain bar before I can really dial in? I'll pay a little bit of attention, but really start to break it down and focus. It's gonna take a minute, right? This guy jumped the line a little bit because you were so persistent about it. And this most recent fight, this last fight, you're right. This is the first one I was really dialed in, not only because he was finally a main event, but all the chaos in the preceding week really teed it up for him.
right.
And what was most impressive to me was that this young man was so mature. He took that moment beyond what he was able to do to his opponent. He was able to come through what is, I believe, the most difficult aspect of boxing, which is to take that spotlight, take that moment, grow into it whenever it's thrust upon you. This was not supposed to be his main event showcase. This was not supposed to be his spotlight week. He wasn't supposed to get called out on the press conference stage by Keyshawn. A lot of things happened this week that weren't supposed to happen, that were not expected. And every time it came around, he handled it well. Now, I said in the last conversation we had that I don't like the hesitation when a guy calls you out to start swallowing it. But I think the reason for that is because he was trying to process it. And to your point, it's his brothers, it's his father. He's not really seasoned in the media and like this to respond right off the cuff. And so that let me know in hindsight, in the moment I didn't like it. But in hindsight, it's like, oh, this guy is thinking. He's a thinking fighter. He's someone who's considering what's happening, and rather than reflexively jumping back in Keyshawn's face or throwing another barb right back at him and, doing what I want him to do, he was considering the situation and didn't want to get over his skis
Think
with whatever
before you
he was about
speak.
to say. Yeah, and he gave it some thought. He also gave some thought to what he was going to be like in this moment, in this spotlight. And I thought the young man comported himself incredibly well. That's outside the ring. That's just, you know what? Pay attention to this guy because he might just have the character of a champion, which
Yes.
to me is as important as the skill set. When it comes to the skill set, I seen a street fighter in there. That's not a derogatory term necessarily, because there's advantages to being a street fighter. There's a swagger.
Manny
There's
Pacquiao went pretty good for him as a street fighter, right? Roberto Duran, yeah,
the
like
ultimate street fighter,
yeah,
right? Exactly. What a salient point, a great example. He has that swagger. He also, like Pacquiao, is willing to go right into the battle and be in harm's way to affect his offense. That is not always a great idea. In this case, he believed he was the dominant fighter. He had the elite class over his opponent. I think he believed that wholeheartedly. So I thought his defense was a bit porous. I wasn't as impressed with the defense. I thought he was willingly taking shots to give shots. He was staying in the pocket when he didn't really need to. He was willing to exchange when he could have outboxed. And that was because he wanted to put on a show and wanted to get that knockout and didn't believe he could get hurt in the process.
this was
And,
him actually being patient, Raheem. If you've watched him to his previous fights, this was him not getting overzealous. But no, go ahead.
yeah, well, okay. So
Yeah,
there you go. I haven't watched so many previous fights that I
right,
can make that assessment. But you say that's the case. Okay, well, then that's maturing.
right.
That's growing. But he also knew I need to get this knockout. I want to get it in fantastic fashion. I want to get it as early as possible. And you know what? It almost reminded me of Lomachenko, not his style, because that is entirely different. But what happened in the corner when the opponent went to the doctor and was like, oh, I can't see. I can't. This motherfucker could see. What he couldn't see was a way to win.
Right.
What he couldn't see
And it
was
was
to get
about to get bad.
how he's going to get Mason off his ass. What he
Right.
could not see was why I need to keep doing this. That's what he couldn't see. And I couldn't see it either. I was like, oh, he broke him down. He was like, he knew Mason came there to do business and was going to have no other outcome than the one he imagined for himself. And he could not see how he was going to change fate. So I might as well go home now. That is an incredible win. And to me, that's better than a spectacular highlight knockout, really. Because I was like, oh, you broke this guy down in every way.
Systematically, methodically.
Yeah. But
Yes.
as a street fighter, not as an incredible boxing technician.
Well, that's that learning on the job you see happening before your eyes, right? As he's fighting better fighters, he's being forced to slow things down and settle for the jab landing sometimes. And and I know you said he was getting touched coming in, but I saw him at least making those partial blows a lot of times. It wasn't, but head snapping, and all. He was at least taking something off of it and catching some of it, and sometimes outright making a miss and blocking the shot. But I like you keeping it real and being like, kind of was a street fighter who's getting touched coming in. I like it.
Yeah, but there's room for growth. He's
Yes.
about to be in a championship fight.
Lastly, Raheem, so all right, so you've analyzed Abdullah Mason. This is your first time really watching him. What's his upside? I know that's not your thing, right? Projecting potential and what ifs and all that. But do you see a blue chipper? Do you see a kid that could be special?
I see a kid that's already special. I see a maturing young man who took the spotlight that was thrust upon him in the 11th hour and handled it. I liked everything I saw from him, even the mistakes, because the mistakes were part of a plan to succeed. And he was the kind of fighter that is taking risk for reward. I don't think
Ambitious mistakes,
ambitious
not
mistakes.
lackadaisical mistakes, ambitious mistakes. I'm trying
I'm
to
gonna
make
be
something happen mistakes.
You're gonna hear that coming from me in the future.
Yeah.
Ambitious mistakes. I love that. That's fantastic. Exactly. I like everything I saw. The kid's a star already. Now it's just a matter of how long it's gonna take everybody else to find out. And as far as I know, you knew first. So yeah, yeah. A blue chipper. Let's see. Let's see. I want to see him in new circumstances. I want to see him with new challenges. I want to see him climb. Not too fast. I'm in no rush. I want to, but I do feel like now he deserves that championship vacated title shot 100%. And I want to see how he handles the opportunity. I'm in. I'm in.